This is Champions of Marketing, interviews with the world's best marketers. On this episode, I talk with Mike Madden, Director of Commercial Demand Generation at Adobe. We discuss the challenges that are facing marketers in 2020, how marketing and sales can partner better together, how Mike obtains his budget and then defends against it. And we also discuss Japanese sporting brand Mizuno and why Mike admires them. Enjoy the episode. Mike, welcome, and thank you for joining me on Champions of Marketing, the first episode of the pilot.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
I'm excited to have you. So first question, Mike, is how did you get your start in marketing?
So in college, my college did not offer a marketing degree, but they did have some marketing classes. I always knew I wanted to do marketing, so I tried to do as much of that as I could in college. Did a few marketing internships. And then buddies convinced me to move to the Bay Area afterwards because they said, why would you go anywhere but the Bay Area? Did that and started in marketing at a 13-person asset management company in Mountain View. And it was very small. It was just me and my boss in marketing. Was only there for about 8 months, moved on to about a 2,000-person asset management company. And that's where about 3 months in, I was tapped to work on Marketo, which at that time I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. But that was in San Mateo, and the company was actually diagonally across the street from Marketo's headquarters at the time. Then it all just kind of went on from there. Got my Marketo certification, learned the product really well for a few years, and then walked across the street, interviewed, and got a job at Marketo. And that was back in 2015.
2015, so about 5 years with Marketo/Adobe.
5 years in June. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that anniversary.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell me about your current role with Adobe.
So the current role with Adobe is Director of Demand Gen for commercial, and that would be under the Adobe Experience Cloud. It's right now it's just two products. It's Marketo and Magento. Magento was added to the commercial bag last August, and teams came together. My team tripled in size, I think, kind of overnight when that happened. But we are focused on companies that make $1 billion and less in revenue. So we're basically anything that is not in the enterprise segment. That was kind of the classic Adobe. And we have one main revenue goal shared across these two products, Marketo and Magento. And Magento has kind of been this an interesting learning curve because it's an e-commerce software solution, and it's not Marketo. Marketo is kind of what I kind of grew up in and what I know very well. And on the Magento side, they're just at a different stage of I guess demand gen maturity. And so we get to, by bringing these teams together, we've been able to combine what we know. We're learning from that side as well, and we're kind of like this startup business that's really well funded and well backed and supported within Adobe. Full role.
Great. So we've just entered into a new decade, and there's a lot of technological changes and advancements happening. We're probably in a stage of the most rapid technological advancement in human history. So when it comes to marketing, what are the biggest challenges that marketers face at this time and in the next 5 years going into this new decade?
I think there's a few. One of the big ones that keeps changing every year is regulations. And so data privacy laws that occur in different countries like Canada and EMEA. There's a new thing that's out there now about cookies and what are cookies actually capturing. So I think that's kind of something that's always going to be in flux and likely to get stricter over time, not necessarily more loose. And so technologies are going to have to innovate and have some really creative solutions around new laws and regulations that come into place, because some of them are substantial enough to where companies like marketing departments and sales departments can't hit their number because of some new law. The other one is, I think we're generally in this state of having too much marketing technology available. It's great that that there is as much innovation as there is, but everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie. And we keep socializing that crazy eye chart of 7,000 or whatever MarTech solutions that there are now, which I don't know that is super realistic. I think there's really only a few that really matter. And so I think when you're offered all of these different solutions, it means that people are kind of always shopping and evaluating what they're doing, and maybe doing so before they've really figured out if the stuff that they have really works. And so I think there's this constant battle of choice. Do I continue with the current software I have, or do I make a change? And then the probably the biggest one, and it keeps coming to a head every year, is how do you do more with less? It's the constant battle everyone faces. We do it just like anyone else at Adobe. You get your targets for the year for revenue, what you have to generate. Maybe someone says your headcount is slightly better, the same, or worse, and your budgets are likely the same or worse. And so you have to figure out how to do a lot more with less. And then the real challenge there is, how do I prove my worth or my team's worth and what we do on the impact of, can we really drive the revenue like we say we can? Are we sourcing enough revenue? Are our sellers happy? And so you get in this weird kind of cycle of, I have to prove what I'm doing, but it's really challenging to do it. Yeah. But if I don't do it, I don't get the money. But if I don't get the money, I can't spend it to show what I can do. And so you just get in this loop, which I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to have that every year for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's absolutely a challenge. And I think you kind of answered what my next question was going to be, which is regarding budget. How do you secure a budget for marketing activities, for marketing technology? And when you do secure that budget, how do you make sure that you can defend that budget? How do you provide that ROI so finance realizes it was a good decision to allocate that amount of funds to you?
Yeah. What's interesting is, so I've been at Marketo for almost 5 years, and in that time frame, we went through the Vista acquisition and then the Adobe acquisition. And in the Vista acquisition, there was a lot of emphasis on systems, on cleanliness, on operations, and on reporting. A lot of which is because Vista is a private equity company. They want to grow a company as quickly as they can, and do it in a smart way. They don't want to hire a bunch of people. They want to be efficient. And so one of the things that we did really well and we figured out was appropriate sourcing. So did marketing source this revenue? Was it sales? Was it partner? And then maybe even more so, if you're looking at just marketing, was it inbound? Was it like an assisted outbound effort where marketing gave you a signal and you went and made a dial? Was it pure outbound? What was it? And so one of the things we did really well was figure out sourcing and understand what was the impact that we made on revenue. And because at that time we were Marketo, and Marketo is a very complete marketing automation product, and we knew how to use it. We still do. We sourced, I think, 92% of the revenue, the total revenue, in 2017. We did not have any challenges defending our budget. And it was, a lot of it was due to having a proper operations kind of setup and foundation for everything that needed to happen to be able to report on this stuff. At that time, and still now, having the right attribution in place. There's so many, this is the other problem, there's a lot of different tools out there that want to help you track your programs, do first touch, multi-touch, last touch, weighted attributions, maybe even like look at like fractional leads that are being generated because it's shared across multiple programs. There's all these different ways of cutting it. But we had and still have a very good way of looking at that and making sure that we're or understanding how we're driving the revenue. Over time, what we've done is we recognize that a 92% sourcing of revenue from marketing is not a healthy amount. It shows the product works, but it's not a healthy amount because it doesn't put enough emphasis on sellers still need to go hunt. Sellers still need to outbound. They need to kind of carry their own. And in a way, we don't want them just waiting for leads that marketing sends. We want them to kind of do other stuff with their time. And so if we're talking about in today's terms, that you're just trying to figure out how to defend your budget, it comes down to the right operational foundation to understand sourcing, agreed upon terms from marketing, sales, partner, and with that, what is inbound and outbound, the right ROE set up in place, and everyone's bought into the ROEs, and then having the right software in place to report out on it. Marketo does it really well. Marketo bought Visible in 2018 now. Visible does it very well. Visible is actually extremely custom reporting, so you can get just about anything you want in Visible. But if you're able to get the right stack set up on the right foundation, it becomes very easy to justify your budget numbers because you can then kind of back into, hey, this is my revenue target. I know what my cost per lead is. Generally, I know what my cost per, we call it an AQL, but MQL, the lead that goes to a BDR or SDR function. We know what that is. We know what the cost per opportunity is. Therefore, we know what the budget is. We need to have this much budget in order to execute and get these programs in market. And by the way, we need this much headcount to do it. So it becomes more of like a bottoms up conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is probably a question that's been asked millions of times, and it's one of those questions where there's no answer to it, and that's about sales and marketing, the partnership between them. How do they work better? You've got sales teams trying to drive towards hitting their number. You've got challenges within sales that are very different to the challenges in marketing, but at the same time, marketing are also trying to drive toward a number. Generally, the KPIs are very different, though, between a sales and marketing org. So in your experience and in your opinion, how does sales and marketing at whether it be a small company or a large enterprise company, how do they work together better to create a relationship that is going to be more open to communication and it's going to cause less arguments and people are going to feel like they're on the same team and not competing against each other when it comes to attribution of leads and things like that?
Yeah. I think it was back in 2015 that I learned a lot about what not to do for sales and marketing partnership at Marketo. And at that time, I was like a program manager. I was one of the guys just building programs in Marketo and trying to make things better. And I'd sit in these meetings, and you'd kind of get all the marketing leaders on one side and all the sales leaders on another side, and all of whom were very nice people. But you'd watch them in these meetings and you'd say, wow, this is not going so well. This is very ineffective. It doesn't seem like anyone's listening. They're talking over each other, interrupting each other. And I kind of couldn't believe it because it felt like the whole human element of let's all just be friends. And it sounds really stupid. So let's be friends, be respectful, and listen. It kind of goes away. And for whatever reason, you see that a lot with marketing and sales. It's us versus them. And I keep thinking about like tandem bicycles, but you would never ride a tandem bicycle with these people because you'd get nowhere. And I think what I figured out is at its most like raw element, a marketing person and a salesperson need to be able to call each other at 10 p.m. And you need to be able to say, how are you doing? How was your day? How's your family? By the way, the reason I'm calling you is because of some idea I had or something that's on my mind. And if you can get to the point to where you're actually building a friendship at that level, you're not just building a friendship, you're building a partnership. You're building someone you could trust, that has your back, that will actually go to bat for you when you're not there, when you can't defend yourself, and that person will step up and defend you, which is something, it sounds so stupid and so like rudimentary and simple, but it's true. And we don't focus on that enough. Once I figured that out, things kind of changed at Marketo, where it was like, okay, I don't have to sit in these big meetings and watch people ineffectively communicate with each other. I can listen to my sales counterparts and just go talk to them. Just sit with them after the meeting and say, hey, what you said in there was really interesting. How can I help you? And approaching it more from that aspect of, not you're wrong and I'm right. And so little things started to change there, and we'd see improvements and relationships got better, and different people moved on from the organization after the Vista acquisition. And I kind of was brought up a little bit in the org. And then in the Vista process, this is probably what's most important, is Vista for most everything follows like serious decisions, like business models. They're big fans of serious decisions, and serious decisions has a lot of good stuff. But the thing that is challenging is it's not always completely applicable to your business. Like it may not work for a certain process you have, and so therefore the whole model needs to be changed or shifted or whatever. And so what we had implemented was an actual like lead to revenue model. What does it mean to go from a lead that is created in your database or a customer that's in your database and actually being acquired or whatever, to generating a response, which is just a success in a program. So you clicked an email, you filled out a form, whatever, it was a desired action, to becoming an automated qualified lead, which is an MQL or whatever you may call it, getting passed to a qualifying function in the sales department or a marketing department, depending on how you're structured, to passing that lead off to an AE, to accepting the lead, to pipeline, to actually like close one. And so we built this model together, and like together with salespeople and with operations people, and all of a sudden it became, well, marketing is now genuinely interested with what happens to the lead after it's handed off. Does it become an opportunity that was qualified by a BDR or SDR? Is it moving to pipeline? Are they actually not accepting any of the leads that marketing is sending over? And that may be dramatic, but is there a 60% flush rate? Like they don't even accept it or try and work it, they just flush it. Maybe they do try and work it, then they flush it. Maybe marketing should be accountable for pipeline. Maybe marketing should be accountable for revenue won and close rates, and where we're winning, where we're not, building an ideal customer profile, what industries we're playing in. All that started to make sense. And then on the sales side, it was, well, I know that my wallet is dependent on things like, what is marketing's cost per lead? If marketing can get a lower cost per lead, that's more leads. And if I believe in their funnel and their demand gen process, more leads means more dollars in my wallet. Maybe marketing has, maybe marketing can improve the conversion rate from getting a response to actually getting a lead to AQL or MQL. What if I can do that faster by telling marketing there's actually a break in this process? So there's all these little pieces where all of a sudden it wasn't just you stay on your side and I stay on mine. It was, hey, I see something over here on your side could work better, and I want to help you, and vice versa. And so by building this model together, what we found, and this was kind of in that magic year where marketing sourced all this revenue, but it was where things were working really cohesively and well, was that everyone was accountable. Everyone was friendly. Everyone believed in each other. Marketing and salespeople were getting lunch together. They were high-fiving. Their hands were hurting. There was all this stuff happening where you don't normally see it in an organization. You didn't see the cancer spreading or the disbelief in the process. And so I'd say, aside from the human element, if you can sit down and define an actual process from a lead or customer in your database to becoming some version of close one revenue, then marketing and sales can partner together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great explanation. And it seems like culture is really the foundation of a great relationship between sales and marketing. And I think a lot of companies, especially the larger enterprise companies, they really lack that. ones that have been around
Yeah.
for a long time and have been through a lot of technological change, and maybe haven't grown and evolved with technology and with market changes. So yeah, I think that's a really good explanation. Final question. You've been in the tech industry and marketing for a number of years now. Outside of the tech industry, what are some companies that you think are doing some really great things in marketing?
This one's in the tech industry, but I want to mention it because it was really interesting. I saw an ad on Hulu. We have a Hulu TV subscription, and it was a Google ad. But I think there's this very interesting. I know Google's it's B2B, it's B2C, it's B2H, whatever you want to call it. But there's this interesting transition where you see these big tech companies now putting out like actual branded commercials that maybe aren't so much for an actual product that they sell. Like IBM is, talking about Watson, and if you watch a golf tournament, it's all about IBM Watson everywhere. Like, why does this matter? How is this golf? But all of a sudden you start thinking, well, this is a cool brand. This is a cool thing. And that's all their intention is. Get people to, like, public opinion to change of your company and think it's even cooler. And Google did this commercial that was about an elderly couple. And I got the sense that this man's wife had passed away, and he was slowly losing his memory, and he was asking Google to remind him of certain things about his wife and to show him pictures of his wife from, different times in their marriage. And it was just this beautiful, moving commercial where you're like, I don't feel like I'm watching a commercial from a software giant. I feel like I'm watching a commercial about a life, like a human. Like they're telling me something about a human. So I know it's a tech example, but that was a very impactful message for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that example, because if you think about the Super Bowl ads recently, there was a lot of companies trying to bridge the gap between their brand and the emotional and experience that a consumer has, and trying to create a link. And there were some commercials that really hit the mark, and then there were other ones where you're like, well, I don't really know how that relates to your product.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a tough thing to cross over. A couple ones outside of tech that come to mind. One of them is Jeep. I am a Jeep owner. I have a Grand Cherokee. It was like my dream car. I bought it the day Vista acquired Marketo. And I bought it before like any check was in my pocket or anything like that. I was like, I'm going to just do it. Right. Yeah. So I was super excited. And I remember the first commercial that came out to advertise the new Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, the one that's out today, was a red two-door Rubicon, literally like starting at the end of a pond or a little lake, driving through this pond/lake, which was probably about 3.5 feet deep, and then going up a waterfall and going to the top, and then it just says like Jeep Wrangler. And I was like, God, that was amazing, right? And it's funny, but it's like you didn't need the script, you didn't need any music, you didn't need anything else other than the product doing its job, doing exactly what it's designed to do, but in at the right angle and everything that was awe-inspiring, where you were like, this is a company that, like, the brand speaks for itself. You don't have to put lipstick on a pig. There isn't all this fluff around it. The product does what it does, and it just put your brand at the end, and all of a sudden, hey, this is a great commercial. So that's a car one. And then the other one that I think is very interesting, because I'm a golfer, is Mizuno. Now, Mizuno makes golf clubs. They make running shoes. They have regular athletic apparel. They have anything across the board. And if you look at the PGA Tour, you will see that the bulk of the players are sponsored by TaylorMade, Titleist, and Callaway. That's kind of where it stands. And then if you look at the people that do not have iron sponsors in their bag, they play Mizuno. Anyone that does not have an iron sponsorship, they play a Mizuno. Brooks Koepka, who was #1 in the world for 2 years or something, he has Mizunos in his bag. There's no Mizuno, bag, stamp on it or embroiderment. There's no Mizuno on his shirt, his hat, nothing. And Mizuno's slogan is, nothing feels like a Mizuno. And I'm a I'm a I'm a I'm a very good golfer. I've played for like 25 years. I'm trying to do some professional stuff on the side. So I know my golf brands and I know how they work, how they feel. And their statement is true. Nothing feels like a Mizuno. And it's funny that, that to me, the hardest part about marketing is if someone says, write one sentence for me. Then it gets hard. If someone says, write a 1,000-page essay, I got it. No problem. That's easy. I'll write you a 1,000-page essay on why this is so cool. Write me one sentence. Mizuno wrote one sentence. Nothing feels like a Mizuno, and it's true. And that's unbelievable.
So why does Mizuno not have the big sponsorships? Because I have Mizuno running shoes, and when I bought them, I went to the store with the intention of buying Adidas or Nike. And I tried on Adidas and Nike, and I walked around with them in the store, and I'm like, they don't feel great for running. So then the sales rep said, hey, try these Mizunos on. I tried them on. I took 2 steps, and I'm like, they're the ones. And I still wear them to this day. I also have a 3-iron. I got a Mizuno 3-iron, and it's great. But so tell me why there aren't the big, well-known players like the Rory McIlroys, the Tiger Woods, the Brooks Koepka. Like, why are those guys not sponsored by Mizuno?
I don't think it's in Mizuno's DNA. If you look at, and just to nerd out on it for a second, so hopefully everyone that listens to this loves golf. But if you look at their innovation, like they look at their golf clubs more like they're pieces of art. Like I just got new Mizuno blades, and I literally feel bad hitting because they're so beautiful, and you'd rather just like hang them up and look at them. But they look at their
Japanese.
Yep, I think it's the Japanese way.
Yeah,
I think so. But they look like butter knives. You know, you want to set them out at the table on Thanksgiving, but they look back over time and they look at their brand like it's a historical thing. And if you look at how they've produced this latest set of irons, they say that they have used technology and inspired pieces of technology from irons that they produced in the 60s that are known and like revered as some of the best irons that were ever made. Now, to be at a small Japanese company back in the 60s that had produced what is considered to be some of the best irons ever made is incredible, right? But they took some of that and they put it in these new irons, and it's like bringing history through the brand over time. And they ended up putting some like a copper inlay in these new irons to make them feel softer and blah, 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 right? And so they're all about, yes, nothing feels like a Mizuno, but nothing is more, in my mind, more purpose-built than a Mizuno. If you're a good player, you know what you're doing, that's what the brand is aiming for. Like it's meant for good players that know how to swing a club and know how to move a ball. And if you look at a brand like we'll say like TaylorMade comes out with a new driver every 10 months. There's always some huge advancement in where they put the weight, how the head shape looks, trying to make it seem really different. A few years ago, they came out with something called Twist Face. Well, Twist Face is basically a golf face that is curved differently so that when you miss hit, it won't be more offline. So it intentionally tries to bring a push back to the center of the fairway or a slice back to the center of the fairway or whatever it may be, right? And so, but the thing that no one knows is Twist Face was marketed by TaylorMade really, really well, but first came out, I think, by Cobra 2 years prior, who didn't market it, who didn't do anything with it. And that was probably a miss on their part because they could have, because TaylorMade did it so well. But to me, it's like, it's those guys are these big marketing giants, and they're just trying to get you to fall in love with the next club that may be marginally better than the product they just produced, but looks very different. The shape's different. The weight's different. The marketing's different. They put their logo on all the tour guys' hats up here. Hooray, everyone buy one. But if you look at a brand that's trying to create a product that is like the definition of precision, something that is beautiful, purpose-built, and works for real, like well-rounded players, it's Mizuno. So for you to say you're the running shoes was you put on Mizuno's and you took 2 steps and you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. It's the same thing in golf. So I think that message kind of goes throughout their brand, and that their main objective isn't, hey, let me go put my logo on every big name out there and see if I can get them to fall in love with my shoes or my clubs or whatever. Because I don't think they have the money for that. They don't have all the sponsorship dollars. But if they create the best product, then one way or another, the best players or the best runners or whoever it is will come to their product and say, yeah, I want to win. I don't need a sponsorship deal. If these feel good, I want to win. And that's actually, to me, what's most impressive about that brand. Brooks Koepka was winning with these irons. You know, he won like 3 or 4 majors in a 2-year stretch. He won back-to-back U.S. Opens. There weren't any Mizuno commercials of him holding up the iron and being like, this is what I use, the JPX, this is it.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. And Mizuno was like, no, everyone's going to look up what's in Brooks Koepka's bag. Oh, Mizuno's. Okay, our sales just spiked. It's very smart. It's very, very smart.
Yeah, well, they must be loving it. It's free marketing in a sense, but it's not in-your-face marketing. And I don't think the good golfers need in-your-face marketing. They're the guys and women that are out there doing the research themselves and looking well beyond the twist face technology and why it's 10% better than last year's model.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It's very interesting. And you know what's surprising, and this is the last thing I'll say about golf, I promise. What's surprising is how well Tiger did in his, like stretch of his greatest years being sponsored by Nike. Because Nike never made impressive golf clubs. Mm-hmm. But for him to be able to pull off what he did with Nike clubs, which he was Titleist before he was Nike, but to be able to pull that off in his greatest years, that's a miracle. I mean, more on him than on Nike's golf clubs. That is a miracle.
Yeah. And Rory McIlroy too, for a short period of time, right? Was it
exactly?
Nike guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, it turned into a bit of a golf show, but
that's okay.
Yeah. No, but interesting points on the marketing, and I think Mizuno is a really great company to bring up that their marketing relies on just amazing product and Japanese precision and that workmanship, which is, in for hundreds of years, even more, dates back of quality products. And you think of the car industry, Japanese cars are just well known for never breaking down. They'll run forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, Mike. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining. Great conversation. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, definitely if you're viewing this, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Any questions about marketing automation, just general marketing stuff, send me a LinkedIn message. I'm happy to chat more.
Yeah, and we'll have all of your information above the video, which will be linked, and you can find that on LinkedIn. And you can also follow our LinkedIn page, which is Champions of Marketing. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Yep. Thank you.